Store manager humiliates and expels pregnant woman, but young cashier helps her. And weeks later, a luxury car appears at his house and leaves him paralyzed. Don't miss out on such exciting stories like this. Click subscribe and activate the bell to receive all our daily videos. The supermarket door opened, and Emily entered without drawing attention. She wore a simple dress, a shabby coat, and carried some heavy bags. The rounded belly revealed her pregnancy, and her exhausted expression conveyed tiredness and need. She walked slowly through the aisles, observing everything carefully, not like an ordinary customer, but as someone analyzing every detail, every face, every attitude. Her eyes caught glances of contempt, indifference, and in some cases, suspicion. Employees passed by her without offering help. Some whispered, others simply looked away. Emily sighed. She knew that this test would be tough, but she didn't expect it to be so disappointing. She, the owner of that large supermarket chain, was there in disguise, putting her employees to the test. She wanted to see who would have compassion and who would prove to be cruel. She stopped near a checkout and took a deep breath. She was exhausted. Her hands ached from holding the heavy bags. She looked at one of the employees and made a simple request. "Excuse me, could you get me a glass of water? I'm very tired." The attendant, not even hiding her impatience, pointed to a distant water cooler. Emily nodded and walked over. But before she could take 2 steps, another cutting voice interrupted her. "Hey, you!" She turned and found a well-dressed, middle-aged woman with a stern expression. It was Abigail, the manager of the unit. Her gaze was filled with disdain. "What are you doing here?" Abigail crossed her arms, looking Emily up and down. "If you're here to buy something, that's fine. If not, please, we don't want beggars in the supermarket." Emily frowned. "I just asked for a glass of water. I'm pregnant, tired, and this is not a shelter." Abigail interrupted, her voice filled with irritation. "If you want to rest, go somewhere else." Emily felt the weight of those words. She looked around, hoping for some reaction from the employees, but no one intervened. Some pretended not to see, while others simply continued their work. "Please, I just need a minute." She tried again, keeping calm. "Get out of here now," Abigail ordered harshly, "or I'll call security." The humiliation was immediate. Emily lowered her eyes, held the bags, and turned to leave. But before she could take another step, a different voice was heard. "Wait!" She lifted her gaze and saw a young man approaching. He was one of the cashiers, a boy no older than 22. His eyes were kind, and his expression was concerned. "Are you okay?" he asked. Emily was surprised. For the first time since she entered, someone showed genuine concern. "I just need a little water," she replied, her voice low. Nathan, the young cashier, didn't hesitate. He temporarily left his post and grabbed a disposable cup from the counter next to him. He filled it with water and handed it to her. "Here, you can drink. Are you enjoying this story? Let me know in the comments where you're watching from, and let's continue with this exciting story." She took the cup with trembling hands and drank slowly. The relief was immediate, not just from the refreshing liquid, but from the young man's gesture. Abigail huffed, impatient. "Nathan, we don't have time for this. Get back to work now." But he ignored her. "Do you want to sit down for a bit?" he asked Emily. She nodded. Nathan looked around and noticed that there were no nearby chairs. Without thinking twice, he took off his own jacket and folded it, placing it on the floor so she could sit more comfortably. "Here. At least this way you won't sit on the cold." Emily hesitated, but his kindness was so genuine that she accepted. She sat down slowly, feeling a lump in her throat. "Are you hungry?" Nathan asked, crouching beside her. "I don't want to bother." He smiled. "It's not a bother. Wait a second." Before Abigail could stop him, Nathan went to a nearby shelf, grabbed a pack of cookies and a juice, quickly went through the checkout and paid with his own money. He returned and handed them to her. "Here, eat a little." Emily took the items, touched. Meanwhile, Abigail watched everything with disgust. "This is ridiculous," the manager exploded. "Nathan, you're helping someone who shouldn't even be here." He stood up and looked directly at her. "She just asked for a little help. That's not a crime." Abigail rolled her eyes, impatient. "You should worry about your job instead of wasting time with people like her." Nathan didn't respond. He just turned back to Emily, who was eating slowly and clearly emotional. "Is there anything else I can do for you?" he asked softly. Emily stared at him for a few seconds. The sparkle in his eyes was not of pity, but of true compassion. She took a deep breath, trying to hold back the tears. "You've already done more than you imagine." Nathan smiled, not knowing that at that moment, his life was about to change forever. Emily remained seated for a few more minutes, feeling Nathan's gaze upon her. The young man showed no urgency or embarrassment, just genuine concern. Something rare, something she hadn't seen in a long time. Abigail, the manager, huffed loudly, impatient. "Enough of this nonsense. Nathan, get back to your post now." He turned to her, staying calm. "As soon as I'm done here, Abigail." His calm but firm tone made the manager even more irritated. "You're playing with your own luck, kid." Nathan didn't reply. He just bent down again, looking at Emily. "Is there anything else I can do for you?" She hesitated. A part of her wanted to end that moment, leave there and finish the test. But another part, the one that was deeply touched by Nathan's unexpected kindness, wanted to keep observing. "I need a place to rest a little. Just a few minutes," she murmured, looking down. Nathan immediately nodded. "There's a bench across the street. I can help you get there." Emily stared at him. He was really willing to go the extra mile. "No need," Abigail interrupted, her voice cold. "She has already lingered here too long." Nathan ignored her. He took the bags that Emily was carrying and threw them over his shoulders. "Let's go. I'll accompany you." Emily stood up with difficulty. Her body was stiff, as if the previous humiliation had left an extra weight on her shoulders. But Nathan's gaze was reassuring. Without hesitating, she allowed him to guide her out of the supermarket. Outside, the world seemed different. The cold wind brushed against her skin, making her shiver. Nathan noticed and, without saying anything, took off his jacket again and put it over her shoulders. "Here, you're shaking." She held the fabric between her fingers, feeling the warmth left by him. "You didn't have to do that," she said softly. Nathan smiled slightly. "I didn't have to, but I wanted to." She watched him for a moment, intrigued by that answer. They reached the bench, and Nathan helped Emily sit down. He placed the bags beside her and, unhurried, sat down as well. "Are you feeling better?" She nodded. "Much better." There was a moment of silence between them. The noise of the street filled the space, but it wasn't bothersome. On the contrary, Emily felt an unexpected peace there, beside that young man she barely knew. "Do you work there for a long time?" she asked, breaking the silence. Nathan rested his elbows on his knees and sighed. "It's been almost 2 years. It's not my dream job, but it pays the bills." Emily frowned. "And what is your dream job?" He let out a short laugh. "Good question. I don't think I've ever had time to think about it." She observed him more closely. Nathan had a humble demeanor, but at the same time determined. He was young, but his gaze carried a maturity beyond his age. "Do you have family?" Nathan nodded. "I have my mother and my younger sister. My father, well, he left us a long time ago, so it's me who takes care of them." Emily felt a tightness in her chest. "And how do you manage?" Nathan shrugged. "I work. Sometimes I take on odd jobs after hours. I do what it takes." She was silent for a moment, digesting those words. "Have you always been like this? Always helped people?" He smiled slightly. "I think so. My mother always said that kindness costs nothing. And I don't know. The world already has so many bad things, right? If I can make someone's day a little better, why not?" His words struck her in an unexpected way. Emily looked away, feeling something tighten in her chest. She was used to seeing the worst in people. In the business world, greed and coldness were common. But here was Nathan, a simple young man with no ulterior motives, simply being good. She realized that for a moment, she forgot that she was there to test her employees. She forgot that she was a powerful businesswoman. She forgot everything except how Nathan made her feel, and that was dangerous. "You're very quiet," he commented. Emily blinked a few times, trying to reorganize her thoughts. "I'm just thinking." "About what?" She looked at him. "That the world needs more people like you." Nathan blushed slightly and laughed awkwardly. "Well, if you need anything else, I'm around." Emily nodded, but at that moment she realized she didn't want him to leave, and that scared her. Nathan looked at his watch and sighed. "I need to get back before Abigail tears my head off." He stood up, but before leaving he looked at Emily one more time. "Do you have somewhere to go?" She hesitated but nodded. "I do." Nathan didn't seem completely convinced, but he didn't insist. "So, take care, okay?" Emily felt a lump in her throat. "You too, Nathan." He smiled slightly and began to walk away. She watched him until he disappeared through the supermarket door. And for the first time in years, she felt something inside her break. Nathan had no idea, but he had changed everything. And soon, he would find out how much. Emily sat on the bench for a while, observing the activity around her. Nathan's words still echoed in her mind. He didn't just offer help. He did it without expecting anything in return. There was no insincerity, no obligation, no interest. Just genuine kindness. She took a deep breath and placed her hand on the fake belly. The pregnancy prosthesis was perfectly fitted beneath the loose dress. It was lightweight, but enough to convince anyone that she was indeed pregnant. The subtle makeup added a touch of fatigue to her face, and the worn-out clothes completed the illusion. The idea of this test didn't come out of nowhere. Emily had spent years building her supermarket chain, and during that time had seen firsthand how people treated others based on their appearance and social status. She had conducted similar tests in other locations, always disguising herself in different ways: a senior citizen, a single mother, a young unemployed woman. Each time the reactions were almost always the same: indifference, disdain, impatience. But Nathan, he was different. She squinted, trying to suppress the strange feeling that was taking over her chest. Nathan wasn't just an honest employee. He was someone who, even having his own problems, still found space to help others. Emily hadn't expected that, and above all, she didn't expect how her heart reacted every time she thought of him. This is a problem. She had never become emotionally involved in these tests. She had never felt anything beyond disappointment or, at most, a discreet relief at finding one or two decent people. But now it was different. Before she could lose herself further in her thoughts, her cell phone vibrated in the pocket of her coat. She took the device and saw Amanda's name, her personal assistant, glowing on the screen. "Yes," she answered, keeping her voice low. "How is the test going, Mom?" Emily looked at the supermarket entrance. Through the glass, she could see Nathan back at the register, typing something into the cash register. "Different from what I expected," she murmured. "Is that good or bad?" Emily sighed. "I don't know yet." Amanda hesitated on the other end of the line. "Are you going to end the test today?" Emily looked down at the ground, biting her lip. The right thing would be to end it. She had seen everything she needed to see. She knew who Abigail was, and she knew who Nathan was. But for some reason, the idea of leaving without speaking to him again bothered her. "No, I want to observe a bit longer." "Understood. If you need anything, I'm here." Emily ended the call and put away her cell phone. She got up, adjusted Nathan's jacket on her shoulders, and took a deep breath before walking again. She still didn't know exactly what she wanted to do, but she was certain of one thing. Her curiosity about Nathan was far from over. In the supermarket, Nathan continued his work as if nothing had happened. He scanned products, typed in codes, and passed prices without hurry. But inside, his mind was still on what had happened minutes ago. The pregnant woman, the way she looked exhausted, the sad gaze when Abigail kicked her out. Nathan couldn't understand how someone could be so cruel. And the worst part was that he knew Abigail wasn't the only one. He had seen many people treated that way, simple, humble folks being ignored or humiliated for being out of the norm. It disturbed him more than he wanted to admit. "Hey, kid." Abigail's harsh voice pulled him from his thoughts. He looked up and saw the manager standing beside the register, arms crossed, and an irritated expression on her face. "What was that?" he asked, trying to keep calm. "Don't play dumb," she grumbled. "What was that ridiculous scene outside?" Nathan sighed and resumed scanning the items at the register. "I just helped someone in need." "You helped a stranger and even spent your own money. So what?" Abigail rolled her eyes. "You don't learn, do you? People like that take advantage of others." Nathan stopped what he was doing and looked directly at her. "Abigail, she just asked for a glass of water. First it's a glass of water, then a snack, then money. Soon enough, she'll be coming back every day asking for more." Nathan clenched his fists. "Have you ever been in a situation like this? Ever needed help and found none?" Abigail was silent for a moment, but soon regained her arrogant posture. "I don't need to go through that to know how things work." Nathan didn't insist. He knew arguing with her was a waste of time. "I just don't want more scenes like that in my supermarket, got it?" He didn't respond. He just went back to work. Abigail huffed and walked away, muttering something inaudible. Nathan sighed and tried to focus on what he was doing, but deep down, he knew that woman was still on his mind. And what he didn't know was that, at that very moment, Emily was standing on the other side of the parking lot watching everything. She saw the conversation. She saw the way Nathan maintained his posture. She saw how he didn't lower his head to Abigail. And in that instant, she made a decision. She wouldn't leave without doing something. And when she returned, she wouldn't be as a humble pregnant woman. She would be Emily Vasconcelos, the owner of that supermarket. And it was time for some truths to be revealed. The next day dawned differently. For Nathan, it felt just like any other morning. The alarm rang at 6 o'clock, and he got up slowly, feeling the weight of fatigue on his shoulders. His body ached. After so many hours standing in the supermarket, but he was already used to it. He walked to the small kitchen of the apartment where he lived with his mother and sister. The place was simple, small, but always clean. His mother, Donna Helena, was already up, preparing coffee. "Good morning, son. Did you sleep well?" Nathan forced a smile. "I did, yes, Mom. And you?" She sighed, serving 2 cups. "The usual. One eye open, the other closed. You know how it is." Nathan knew. His mother's health wasn't the best. She suffered from back problems, which made it hard for her to work. She had been a housemaid for many years, but the constant pain had forced her to stop. Now, the household's livelihood depended almost exclusively on Nathan. "I'll see if I can get some extra shifts this week," he said, grabbing a bread and spreading butter on it. Donna Helena looked at him with concern. "Nathan, you already work too much. You'll end up exhausting yourself." He smiled slightly. "I can handle it," she sighed, but didn't insist. She knew her son was stubborn. The door to the small room next door opened, and Sophia, his 10-year-old sister, appeared, rubbing her eyes. "Is the coffee ready?" "It is, sleepyhead," Nathan joked, ruffling her hair. She smiled and sat at the table. The scene was so common that for a moment Nathan allowed himself to forget the worries. But deep down, he knew the day would be long, and he had no idea that that morning would change his life forever. On the other side of the city, Emily was getting ready for her return to the supermarket. This time, there were no simple clothes, heavy bags, or a fake belly. Now, she wore an elegant tailored suit, discreet heels, and immaculate makeup. Her hair, previously tied up and messy, now fell in soft waves over her shoulders. The disguise was over. Abigail, her assistant, was waiting by the car with a curious expression. "So today is the big day?" Emily adjusted her blazer and smiled slightly. "Today is the day when some people will understand who I really am." Abigail nodded. "And Nathan?" Emily hesitated for a brief moment. "He's in for a surprise." Without saying anything more, she got into the car. The driver started the engine, and within minutes they were on their way to the supermarket. With each kilometer traveled, Emily felt her heart race faster. It wasn't just because of the imminent revelation. There was something more, something she still didn't want to admit. Nathan. She tried to push that thought away, but the memory of his gaze, so sincere, so different, wouldn't leave her mind. She sighed, closing her eyes for a moment. She needed to stay focused, but one thing was certain: this would not be an ordinary day. At the supermarket, the routine continued normally. Nathan was at the checkout serving customers as usual. Abigail, as usual, was wandering around, observing everything with that critical and arrogant look. Then the door opened, and Emily walked in. The impact was immediate. She walked steadily, and her presence dominated the room. The employees recognized her almost instantly, but it took them a few seconds to process what they were seeing. The day before, she had been there as a pregnant, humble woman. Now she was an imposing businesswoman, dressed like the true owner of that place. Abigail was the first to react. "Mrs. Emily!" The shock in her voice made Nathan look in her direction. Upon seeing Emily, his eyes widened slightly. He stood still, trying to understand what was happening. She approached slowly, without hurry. When she stopped in front of them, she crossed her arms and looked directly at Abigail. "It seems you don't recognize me, Abigail." The manager opened her mouth, but no words came out. Her face turned red, and she started blinking rapidly, as if trying to find an explanation. "Yesterday," Emily continued, "I came in here wearing simple clothes, carrying heavy bags, and asked for just a glass of water." An absolute silence took over the place. All the employees nearby stopped what they were doing to listen. Emily took a step forward. "And what did you do? You humiliated me. You kicked me out. You said that the supermarket wasn't a place for people like me." Abigail's face completely lost color. I didn't know." "You didn't know who I was?" Emily finished with an ironic smile. "But if I really were a pregnant and needy woman, would you have behaved differently?" The manager swallowed hard. "Ma'am, forgive me. It was a mistake." "No, Abigail, that wasn't a mistake. That was who you really are." Abigail opened her mouth again, trying to justify herself, but Emily raised her hand. "I don't want apologies. I want you to take your things and leave." The decision was so firm that no one dared to question it. Abigail stood there, paralyzed, before finally realizing she had no way out. Without saying anything more, she turned and rushed out, her expression a mix of fury and humiliation. The silence lingered for a few moments until Emily turned to Nathan. He was still standing there, not quite understanding what was happening. "You helped me," she said softly. Nathan took a deep breath. You weren't pregnant." Emily smiled faintly. "No, it was a test." He blinked a few times, processing the information. "And why?" "To know who truly cares." "For others," she replied, "to see who acts kindly without expecting anything in return." Nathan remained silent, still trying to assimilate everything. Emily, for her part, felt a tightening in her chest, because at that moment she realized that his reaction mattered more to her than anything else, and that was a problem far greater than any test she had ever conducted. The supermarket was silent. All the employees were watching Emily and Nathan, waiting for what would come next. The revelation of Emily's true identity was shocking in itself, but what really caught attention was the way she looked at Nathan, as if he was the only one in that store who really mattered. Nathan, on the other hand, still seemed dazed. Was all of that a test?" he asked, finally breaking the silence. Emily nodded. "Yes, I wanted to see how my employees treat people when they think no one is watching." He ran a hand over his face, processing everything. "And did I pass this test?" The corners of Emily's lips lifted slightly. "You not only passed. Nathan, you were the only person who really cared." There was a discreet murmur among the employees. Some were clearly embarrassed for having ignored Emily the day before, while others looked at Nathan with a mix of surprise and respect. But Nathan didn't seem satisfied. "And Abigail?" Emily crossed her arms. "Abigail was fired." He took a deep breath. "Well, I'm not surprised." Emily studied him for a moment. He didn't look happy about the news, nor satisfied with what happened. "What is it?" she asked. Nathan hesitated, but eventually let out a sigh. "I didn't. Like her, that's obvious, but I don't know. This all seems strange to me. You came here disguised to test us, and now you fired Abigail because she failed this test. Do you think I was unfair?" He looked her directly in the eyes. "Do you think this test was real for you, or just an experiment?" The question caught Emily by surprise. For the first time, someone made her reflect on this. She always justified her tests as a way to ensure that her company was run by the right people. But looking at Nathan now, she realized that for him, this was not just a simple experiment. It was real, and that was what made him different. She took a deep breath. "Nathan, But before she could finish, Amanda approached, discreet. "Miss Emily, I apologize for interrupting, but your next appointment is in 30 minutes. Emily averted her gaze for a moment, taking a deep breath. "All right. Thank you, Amanda." She looked back at Nathan, who now maintained a neutral expression, but his eyes betrayed a hint of disappointment. "We need to talk," she said. Nathan just nodded. "Whenever you want." Emily didn't want to leave, not now, but she knew there were things to resolve. Before leaving, she looked at the employees around and said in a firm tone, "I hope this supermarket has learned a lesson today. It's not just about selling products, it's about treating people with dignity." With that, she turned and left, leaving behind a shocked supermarket and a Nathan lost in thoughts. In the car, on her way to the office, Emily was restless. She couldn't stop thinking about Nathan, the way he looked at her, the words he said. He didn't care about her position, nor about the fact that she was the owner of the company. He only wanted to know if all of that was real, and Emily didn't have a clear answer for that. Amanda noticed the silence and ventured a comment. "He made you think, didn't he?" Emily looked out the window, watching the city pass by. "Yes. And now?" She closed her eyes for a moment. "Now I need to figure out why this bothers me so much." In the following days, Emily tried to follow her routine, But something was different. Nathan was on her mind all the time. She tried to concentrate on meetings, on important decisions, but her mind drifted back to how he treated her. Not as a wealthy businesswoman, but as an ordinary person. And the strangest thing of all, she missed him, and that was a complication she wasn't prepared to handle. Meanwhile, Nathan tried to return to normalcy at the supermarket, but Emily's presence still lingered over him. His colleagues looked at him differently now. Some treated him with more respect, others with a hint of envy, but Nathan didn't care. What truly bothered him was the feeling that his interaction with Emily was not over yet. And he was right. Because days later, something unexpected happened. A message arrived on Nathan's cell phone. "Emily, we need to talk. Can you meet me tomorrow night?" He stared at the screen for a long time before responding. "Nathan, where?" The response came, almost immediately. "Emily, in my office." Nathan took a deep breath, feeling a mix of curiosity and anxiety. He knew that this conversation would change everything. The only question was he ready for it? Nathan spent the rest of the day trying to ignore the weight of that message. He continued serving customers, registering purchases, and exchanging casual words with colleagues, but his mind was elsewhere, in her office. He didn't know what to expect. Emily wanted to talk to him, but about what? About the test? About how he reacted? About Abigail? Or about something more? That last hypothesis troubled him more than he wanted to admit. Ever since she revealed her true identity, Nathan felt a strange restlessness within him. He couldn't look at Emily as just a simple millionaire businesswoman. What really unsettled him was the way she looked at him. That powerful woman who commanded one of the largest supermarket chains in the country seemed to see something in him that no one else did. And that was dangerous. "You're daydreaming, huh?" Andre's voice, one of the cashiers at the market, brought Nathan back to reality. "What?" He blinked, confused. Andre laughed. "Ever since Emily came here, you've been acting strange. You're thinking about her, aren't you?" Nathan rolled his eyes. "Don't talk nonsense." "Nonsense! Man, the woman is a millionaire and she texted you. If that's not a sign, I don't know what is." Nathan didn't respond. He just returned to scanning the products at the register, pretending not to care. But he did care. A lot. The next day, Nathan left the supermarket early. The clock read 7:30. In the evening, when he arrived at the administrative headquarters of the chain, he looked at the huge glass and steel building and took a deep breath. He was dressed as he always was, jeans, simple sneakers and a black jacket, and suddenly felt out of place. What was he doing there? Before he could convince himself to leave, the receptionist called him. "Mr. Nathan." He turned, surprised. "Oh, that's me. Ms. Emily is waiting on the 21st floor. You may go up." Nathan thanked her, entered the elevator, and pressed the corresponding button. As the numbers ascended, his heart beat faster. When the doors opened, he found a sophisticated environment with modern furniture and a panoramic view of the city through large windows, and in the center of the room was Emily. She wore an elegant black dress and stood looking out the window. When she heard his footsteps, she turned slowly. "You came," she said with a small smile. Nathan nodded. "Of course. You said you wanted to talk." She indicated an armchair near the table and sat facing him. For a few seconds there was silence. Only the distant sound of traffic outside filled the space. "I've been thinking a lot since that day at the supermarket," Emily began. Nathan watched her, waiting for her to continue. "I've done this test in various locations, in several cities, and in almost all of them, the result was the same. People ignored or rejected it. Some, like Abigail, were cruel." She sighed and ran her hand through her hair. "But you were different." Nathan briefly diverted his gaze, uncomfortable with that statement. I just did what anyone should do. Exactly, she said, leaning slightly forward. But almost nobody does. Nathan let out a sigh. I grew up watching my mother struggle to raise my sister and me alone. I saw how people treated her when she needed help. I always promised myself that if I could ever do something for someone, I would. Emily's eyes sparkled slightly at that response. And you kept that promise. He just nodded. For a moment, the silence lingered between them, but this time it wasn't uncomfortable. It was different, something neither of them could explain. Until Emily broke the silence with an unexpected question. If you had the chance to change your life, Nathan, would you take it? He frowned. What do you mean? She leaned back in her chair. I mean that I could give you that chance. Nathan fell silent, trying to understand. Are you talking about a promotion? Emily smiled lightly. That and much more. He raised an eyebrow. Much more like what? She crossed her legs, seeming to measure her words before speaking. You are one of the most honest people I've ever met, Nathan. And I like that. I like how you see the world, how you treat people. Nathan felt his stomach churn. That conversation was taking an unexpected turn. And what does that have to do with me changing my life? Emily leaned a little more forward, her eyes fixed on his. I want you to work directly with me. Nathan blinked, surprised. What do you mean? I want you to leave the supermarket. I want you to be here by my side. I want someone like you close to me. Nathan felt a chill run down his spine. This wasn't just a job offer. He saw in Emily's eyes that there was something more. Something she still wasn't saying out loud. Emily, this doesn't make sense. I'm just a supermarket cashier, and I'm just a businesswoman, she countered. But still, we are here now, aren't we? Nathan didn't know what to reply. His heart was racing. His mind screamed that this was madness, but at the same time, there was something inside him preventing him from refusing outright. After all, he knew. This moment would change everything. The air in the office felt heavier. Nathan felt every beat of his own heart as he stared at Emily. Her invitation hung in the air, like something he wasn't sure was an opportunity or a trap. Working directly with Emily? The idea seemed absurd. He was just a supermarket cashier, an ordinary guy with no experience in the corporate world. But there was something in her gaze, something that made it seem like she knew exactly what she was doing, and that was what scared him the most. He took a deep breath and let out a short, humorless laugh. This is all so crazy. A few days ago I thought you were a pregnant woman needing help, and now you want me to work by your side. Emily rested her elbows on the table and intertwined her fingers. I understand that it seems strange, but the truth is, I've rarely been surprised by anyone as much as you have surprised me. Nathan frowned. I just gave a glass of water and a snack to someone who looked like they needed it, but no one else did that. He turned his gaze away, restless. Emily, I don't know anything about the business world. I don't know how to work by your side. And who said I want you for the business? She replied, her voice lower, almost a whisper. Nathan swallowed hard. For a moment, the silence between them took on a different weight. Emily's gaze was intense, but not in an arrogant or calculating way. It was something deeper, something he didn't know how to handle. He ran his hand over his face, trying to organize his thoughts. If I agree, what exactly do you expect from me? Emily relaxed in her chair and crossed her legs, watching him carefully. I want someone I can trust, someone who helps me see the world differently. I want you to learn, to grow, to discover how far you can go. Nathan chuckled awkwardly. That sounds like you want to turn me into someone else. She shook her head. On the contrary, I want you to keep being exactly who you are." He fell silent, feeling a knot tighten in his throat. Because deep down, he knew he was at a crossroads. If he accepted, his life would never be the same. He would trade the simple routine of the supermarket for a completely unknown world, by the side of a woman who had already stirred things in him more than she should have. If he refused, he would go back home, to his mother and sister, to his usual life, and he would probably spend the next few years wondering, what if? Emily noticed the hesitation and leaned forward slightly, her voice softer. "I know it's a difficult decision. You don't have to answer now." Nathan took a deep breath, turning his gaze to the city view through the window. The lights flickered, like a sea of possibilities. He had never thought too big. He had never seen himself as someone who could have anything beyond the basics, but suddenly, there he was, being offered a chance that anyone would call a unique opportunity. But was he ready for this? He looked back at Emily, who was watching him patiently. "If I say yes," his voice came out lower than he expected, "I would have to change everything." Emily nodded. "Yes. But maybe change isn't a bad thing." Nathan remained silent for a few more moments. Then he let out a heavy sigh and said something that even surprised himself. "I accept." Emily's eyes sparkled. She smiled, and at that moment, Nathan knew there was no turning back. In the following days, Nathan's life turned upside down. The morning after the conversation in the office, he quit his job at the supermarket. The news spread quickly, and his colleagues were shocked. "What do you mean, man? You're going to work with Emily?" Andre asked, incredulous. Nathan shrugged. "Apparently, yes." The reaction was a mix of admiration and envy. But deep down, Nathan didn't quite know how to feel. Emily took care of everything. He received a new position, a salary he had never imagined earning, and an office within the company headquarters. But more than that, he started spending every day with her. And that was what unsettled him the most. The moments next to Emily felt strangely natural. He began to see her not just as a powerful businesswoman, but as a real woman, full of layers. Sometimes, during meetings or work lunches, he would catch himself watching her more than he should, and she watched him too. The way she looked at him, as if trying to decipher him, as if she was waiting for something from him. And then, one day, everything changed. It was night, and they both stayed late working in the office. The city outside was silent, only the lights of the buildings shining in the dark. Nathan was reviewing some documents when Emily stood up and walked to the window, crossing her arms. "You know what's funny?" she said without turning to him. Nathan lifted his eyes from the paper. "What?" she sighed. "I thought that after so many years in this field, nothing could surprise me anymore." He frowned. "And what?" "I changed." Emily turned slowly and faced him. "You." Nathan felt his heart race. For a moment, the air seemed to grow heavier. He saw something different in her gaze, something that went beyond respect or admiration. It was desire. He swallowed, hard, feeling his body tense. "Emily!" She took a step towards him slowly. "Tell me something, Nathan." He couldn't look away. "What?" Emily smiled slightly, stopping just a few centimeters from him. If all of this were a test, who would be the one being tested right now? Nathan held his breath. Because, for the first time, he realized that maybe he had been part of the test all along, and that, at that moment, he had no idea what the right answer would be. Nathan felt the weight of Emily's question spread through the room. His heart raced so loudly that he wondered if she could hear it. She was so close that the soft perfume she wore seemed to envelop him. Her gaze was steady, intense, but there was something more there, a vulnerability he didn't expect to see. If all of this were a test, who would be the one being tested now? He opened his mouth to respond, but no words came out. Because for the first time since entering that world, Nathan realized that it wasn't just his professional life that had changed. Something much greater was happening, and deep down he knew it was about to cross any limits he had ever imagined crossing. Emily waited, as if she wanted to see how far he would go, but Nathan didn't know how far he could go. "I don't know how to answer that question," he said, his voice lower than he intended. Emily slightly tilted her head, her eyes still fixed on his. "Maybe because it's not a question that has a single answer." Nathan felt the tension between them grow. The office was completely silent, except for the distant sounds of the city outside. He could simply step back and end that conversation. Keep things professional. Stick to the safe path. But for the first time, he didn't want the safe path. And apparently, Emily didn't want it either. She took a deep breath and stepped back a little, as if she wanted to give him space to think. "I think we've worked enough for today," she said, with a slightly different tone, as if she wanted to soften what had just happened. Nathan nodded, even without knowing exactly what he was agreeing to. "Yes, I think so." She grabbed her bag and looked at him before walking to the door. "Nathan!" He lifted his gaze. "Hmm?" Emily hesitated for a moment. Then she smiled slightly. "Good night." And then she left, leaving Nathan there, lost in his own thoughts. Because for the first time, he had no doubts that something had changed between them, something he wasn't sure he could ignore. In the following days, Nathan tried to keep his routine as normal as possible, but normal didn't seem to exist anymore. The dynamic between him and Emily had changed. It wasn't something explicit, but it was there. In the way she watched him during meetings, in the way her fingers brushed lightly against his arm when greeting him, in the way their glances lingered longer than necessary. It was a silent game, but they both knew they were playing. And then one day, Emily decided to break the silence. "Nathan, would you like to have dinner with me?" The question came out of nowhere. He was in the office reviewing some reports when she simply appeared at the door and said that as if it were completely normal. But it wasn't, because Nathan knew it wasn't just any dinner. He looked up, studying her for a moment. "Is it a business dinner?" Emily smiled slightly. "Let's pretend it is, if that makes you feel more comfortable." Nathan took a deep breath. He could refuse. He could keep things the way they were. But the truth was, he didn't want to. "All right," he replied. The sparkle in her eyes made it clear that was exactly the answer she wanted to hear. The night came faster than Nathan expected. He had never been to a restaurant like that before. The place was sophisticated, with low lights and an intimate atmosphere. Emily seemed completely at ease there. She wore an elegant burgundy dress that made her gaze look even more intense under the restaurant's subtle lighting. Nathan, on the other hand, felt out of place. He wore his best shirt, which in reality wasn't much, and still felt like he didn't belong in that environment. But when Emily looked at him and smiled, as if he were the only person that mattered in that place, he forgot all of that. "Are you feeling uncomfortable?" she asked while the waiter served the wine. Nathan shrugged. "A little. I'm not exactly used to places like this." She watched him for a moment before responding. "That doesn't mean you don't belong in them." Nathan smiled subtly. "Do you always talk this way?" "What way?" "As if you're testing me all the time?" Emily let out a low laugh. "Maybe, because I am." Nathan raised an eyebrow. "And am I passing the test?" She held the wine glass and looked at him for a moment before saying something that made him hold his breath. "Didn't you realize, Nathan, that test ended a long time ago?" The silence between them stretched for a moment, laden with something neither seemed ready to name. Nathan looked away, trying to regain control over his own thoughts, but it was impossible, because for the first time, he wasn't thinking about where he should be. He was thinking about what he wanted. And at that moment, the only thing he wanted was her. But there was still a problem, because Nathan wasn't a naive guy. He knew that Emily came from a completely different world than his. He knew that entanglements like that were complicated, and he knew that if he took the next step, there would be no turning back. But then Emily did something that destroyed any doubts that still lingered inside him. She placed the glass on the table, leaned slightly forward, and in a low voice said, "What do you really want, Nathan?" And at that moment, he realized he had no choice left, because the answer was already inside him. And he knew that after that night, nothing would ever be the same again. Nathan faced Emily, his heart hammering in his chest. Her question lingered in the air, charged with a tension he didn't know whether he wanted to dispel or was capable of dispelling. "What do you really want, Nathan?" He knew the answer. He had always known. But saying it aloud meant accepting that nothing would ever be the same. He looked away for a moment, trying to find a shred of reason amidst that swirl of emotions. But then Emily smiled, and everything collapsed. "Are you afraid to answer?" she asked softly. Nathan let out a short laugh, running his hand through his hair. "You're always testing me, huh?" She raised an eyebrow. "Who said this is a test?" The silence between them grew even denser. The restaurant continued its bustle around them, but Nathan saw nothing but her. And it was then that he decided. Without saying anything, he leaned slightly over the table, getting close enough for his words to be spoken in a tone that only she could hear. "What I want," he began, pausing for a moment, observing every detail of her expression, "is to understand why, even knowing this is a terrible idea, I'm still here." Emily smiled slightly, leaning in as well, her eyes fixed on his. "Maybe because not all terrible ideas are wrong," Nathan laughed, shaking his head. "You're dangerous, you know, and you like that." That exchange of words carried a weight that both understood, but there was still something between them, something unspoken, a line that neither knew if they should cross. It was Emily who decided. She picked up her wine glass, took one last sip, and placed it calmly on the table. Then she grabbed her purse and stood up. Nathan frowned. "Where are you going?" She looked at him, and the sparkle in her eyes was a silent invitation. "Come with me." Nathan hesitated for a fraction of a second, but then stood up as well, because deep down, he already knew he would. The night was cold when they left the restaurant. Emily walked ahead, and Nathan followed her without asking anything. She didn't call the driver, didn't order a car. She just started walking, down the sidewalk illuminated by the lampposts. "Don't you want to go by car?" he asked. She looked at him and smiled. "I want to walk a bit." Nathan nodded, stuffing his hands in his jacket pockets as they walked side by side. They walked in silence for a few minutes until Emily spoke, her voice softer now. "Do you think I'm someone who plays with others, Nathan?" The question caught him off guard. He frowned. "What do you mean?" She stopped walking and turned to face him. "I mean, do you think I planned all this? That from the start I knew I wanted to bring you closer?" Nathan was silent for a moment, analyzing her. "I don't know. You seem to be someone who always knows what you want." She laughed, but there was something different in that laugh. "Maybe, but this time..." Emily sighed, looking away for a moment. "This time, I don't know." Nathan felt a tightness in his chest, because for the first time she seemed vulnerable, and that completely disarmed him. He took a step closer, getting nearer to her. "Emily, what are we doing?" She looked up at him. "I don't know." "That's a problem." She smiled faintly. Or maybe it's the only right thing we've done so far. And then, before Nathan could think of anything, Emily moved even closer. He felt her breath mixing with his, the soft scent of her perfume invading his senses. And it was there, on that empty street, under the yellowed lights of the lampposts, that everything changed because Emily kissed him. It was a slow kiss, hesitant at first, as if she wanted to test if he would pull away. But Nathan didn't pull away. He held her by the waist, pulling her closer, and in that instant, any doubts that remained within him vanished. It didn't matter if it was a mistake. It didn't matter if their worlds were completely different. All that mattered was that, at that moment, nothing felt more right than being there with her. When the kiss ended, Emily kept her eyes closed for a moment, as if she wanted to prolong that feeling. Nathan, on the other hand, smiled, shaking his head. "You really aren't afraid of anything, are you?" She opened her eyes and looked at him. "I'm afraid of not doing what I want." Nathan laughed, pulling her close again, and for the first time he decided to stop thinking. Because some things simply didn't need explanation. The kiss changed everything. Nathan knew this the moment his lips separated from Emily's. There was no longer any way to pretend that this was just a professional relationship, that his life hadn't been turned upside down since he met her. And by the way she looked at him, he knew that Emily felt the same. The two stood there for a few seconds, frozen on the sidewalk, saying nothing, just feeling each other's presence. The city continued alive around them, cars passing, distant voices, blinking lights, but nothing seemed to matter at that instant, until Emily broke the silence. "Should I apologize?" Nathan raised an eyebrow, a smile playing on his lips. "Why?" She bit her lower lip, thoughtful. "Because maybe I crossed a line." He let out a short laugh. "What if I say I liked it?" Her smile grew. "Then I won't apologize." Nathan watched her for a moment, still trying to understand how he ended up here. He started that story as a simple supermarket cashier, and now he was standing in the middle of the street after kissing the woman who ran an empire. "What happens now?" he asked sincerely. Emily took a deep breath and looked at the city around her, as if searching for the answer in the blinking lights. "I don't know," she admitted. Nathan chuckled softly. "This is becoming a pattern, you know. You, the woman who seems to have all the answers, always telling me that you don't know something." Emily looked back at him and smiled. "Maybe because with you, I really don't know." Those words made something inside him twist. Before he could respond, Emily's phone vibrated in her bag. She took the device and, as soon as she saw the name on the screen, her expression changed slightly. "Is something wrong?" Nathan asked. She hesitated. "It's just a company problem." He noticed she was being vague, but decided not to press. "Do you need to go?" Emily looked at him and for a moment seemed divided between two choices. Then she sighed. "Yes, but I don't want this conversation to end here." Nathan nodded. "Neither do I." She smiled again, but there was something different in her gaze now, as if something worried her. Emily took a step back, but before leaving she lightly touched Nathan's hand. "I'll see you tomorrow." He held her hand for a second before letting it go. "Always." She nodded, gave him one last look, and then walked away, getting into a black car that was waiting for her at the corner. Nathan stood there for a while, watching the car disappear into the city's traffic, and deep down he felt that something was about to happen. Something big. He just didn't know if he was ready for it. The next morning, Nathan arrived at the company feeling that something strange was in the air. The employees were walking the halls more hurriedly than usual, whispering to each other. The atmosphere felt different, As soon as he entered his office, his phone vibrated with an unexpected message. "Amanda, Nathan, I need you to come to Emily's office, now." His stomach churned. The tone of the message was urgent. He immediately left and walked to Emily's office. When he arrived, he found Amanda standing outside, arms crossed and a worried expression on her face. "What's going on?" he asked. Amanda sighed. "You'd better see for yourself." She opened the door and Nathan walked in. The scene before him took him by surprise. Emily was sitting at her desk with a serious expression and a tablet in hand. On the screen, a news website displayed a shocking headline: "Mystery and Scandal. Who is the young man who won over powerful businesswoman Emily Vasconcelos?" Below the headline, there was a photo of the two together at the restaurant. The night before, the angle was clear. And worse, there was another image captured at the exact moment they were kissing on the sidewalk. Nathan felt his heart race. What is this?" Emily looked up at him, her expression still composed, but with a glimmer of concern. "It seems someone is paying more attention to us than we imagined." Nathan blinked, still trying to process it. "Is this serious?" "Yes, Nathan, and it can get worse." He felt a knot form in his stomach. Emily slid the tablet across the table so he could see better. "Besides these photos, there's speculation that you were promoted." "Because we are together." Nathan's eyes widened. "But that's not true." "I know," Emily replied firmly. "But in the media, the truth doesn't always matter." Nathan felt his blood boil. He never wanted to be in this type of situation. He never asked to be the center of attention. "What do we do now?" Emily took a deep breath and walked to the window. "I need to control this narrative before it affects the company." Nathan frowned. "And I?" She turned to him. "You need to decide if you want to stay by my side, or if you prefer to walk away from this before it gets worse." Nathan felt the weight of those words. Walk away after everything? He looked again at the tablet screen, at the photos of them together. The images spoke more than any article, because, looking at them, he didn't see just a scandal. He saw the moment when his life truly changed. He took a deep breath, raised his eyes to Emily and said firmly, "I'm not going anywhere." And at that moment, he knew this decision would change everything forever. Nathan held Emily's hands, feeling the truth of what he had just said vibrating within him. He had never been afraid of hard work. He had never shied away from a challenge. But for the first time, the biggest challenge he faced was not professional. It was personal. It was choosing Emily. Choosing an uncertain path, filled with obstacles and judgments. But deep down, he knew there was no turning back. "I stay," he repeated, his voice firm. Emily let out a sigh of relief, but there was still a glimmer of worry in her eyes. "Then we need to decide how we are going to handle this." Nathan nodded. "What do you suggest?" She hesitated for a moment, then pulled out a chair and sat down. Her expression was more serious now, calculating every possibility. "Hiding is not an option," she said, looking at him. "That would only give more power to the rumors." "I agree," Nathan replied. "So what will we do?" She watched him for a moment before answering. "We face this head-on." Nathan raised an eyebrow. "Like publicly coming out?" Emily nodded. "Exactly." He let out a nervous laugh and ran his hand through his hair. "You know this is going to explode, right? The press will talk, people will comment." Emily smiled slightly. "I know, but hiding will only make it seem like we have something to hide." Nathan took a deep breath. She was right. But there was something more. He knew Emily was strong, determined, used to facing any storm. But what about him? Was he ready to endure all of this alongside her? He looked into her eyes. Yes, he was. "All right," he said finally. "Let's do this the right way." Emily smiled, and at that moment, Nathan knew he had made the right choice. 2 weeks later, the headlines began to emerge even before Nathan and Emily made any official announcement. Young supermarket cashier wins the heart of the millionaire CEO. Relationship between Emily Vasconcelos and former employee generates controversy within the company. Ambition or love, promoted employee is in a relationship with the boss. Nathan read the titles and felt his blood boil. They didn't even know his story and were already judging him, as if he had planned this from the beginning. Emily, on the other hand, seemed unshaken. "Don't pay attention to that," she said, holding his hand. "But it's unfair," he retorted. "They don't know anything about us." She squeezed his hand tightly. "And they don't need to know. The only thing that matters is what we know." Nathan took a deep breath and nodded, and then came the official announcement. Emily published a short, direct, and clear statement. "My personal life has never been media fodder, but I want to make one thing very clear. Nathan didn't get here because he is with me. He got here because he deserves it. If anyone doubts that, they may need to reconsider their own concepts of success and effort." The repercussions were immediate. Some still commented, doubted, but others began to see the situation differently. Nathan, for his part, decided that he would not let it get to him. He knew what he had done to be there. He knew who he was, and most importantly, he knew who was by his side. Months later, Nathan's life had changed completely. He was now part of the administrative sector of the company and was learning more every day. Emily encouraged him, challenged him, and he was growing as a professional. But above all, there was something even more important between them. The relationship between the two was strengthening every day, despite the challenges. Nathan still wondered sometimes how his life had changed so much in such a short time, from a simple supermarket cashier to an ascending executive. But deep down, he knew that the greatest prize of that journey was not the position nor the recognition. It was her. It was finding someone who saw in him something that no one else saw. And it was, above all, realizing that some opportunities don't appear just by luck or chance. They appear because, at some point, you made the right choice. And Nathan knew that the choice to help that humble pregnant woman in that supermarket months ago had been the best of his life. If this story touched your heart, remember, small acts can change lives. Now we want to hear from you. Have you ever experienced or witnessed a moment of kindness that made all the difference? Share your experience in the comments. Let's spread more love and empathy in the world. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel and share this story with someone special. Together, we can inspire more people to do good. The end.